Hello there. How's it going?
Can you?
Doing good. Doing good. So, what are we talking about today?
Um, if ignorance is holding back uh veganism in terms of um people going vegan and everything. Like the
Okay.
the the movement. Yeah.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel that there's a lot of uh parts of veganism that we don't know. And so there's a lot of people that recommend veganism and as a way of living when we just don't even understand it enough to really say that this is the way, because everyone has an opinion about what's the best way to live. And it's just like with veganism, it's just so new, it's and undeveloped. It's like to recommend it's kind of tricky to do that because we just don't know enough or enough to say this is what we should do or not. And that's why you have your channel because it discusses all the voids in what we don't know about veganism. Because people are always like, go for it, and they don't tell you how. They don't tell you if it's right or not. They just say, just do it. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, how do you do it? How do you know if what you're doing is vegan or not? It just, and then you can end up making mistakes or not being able to think about the ramifications, and then it ends up not working.
Gotcha.
So that's why I
Gotcha.
feel it's holding it back. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think exactly is happening that should change, and in what way would it change?
It's kind of I feel that um we shouldn't be recommending veganism to people, but people should come to it on their own. Like we can help explain how it works, what we think about it compared to what other ideas are. But to say this is what we must do, I think that that's where it's wrong.
Gotcha. Yeah. Maybe a saying must do is complicated, but telling
Like this
people
is the
that
way, like this is the best. Because anyone
gotcha.
could say that this is what they think is the best. you know it's very
Hmm.
subjective, so I think it's like more about like a lot of people will tell people to go vegan, but they don't walk people through, they don't aren't there every step of the way. So people could end up with allergy issues and get sick, or maybe do it the wrong way and get backlash. It's like, unless you are there taking responsibility for every issue that arises in the people that you recommend, or you give back in some way to cancel it out, like it shouldn't be recommended, is what I'm saying.
Interesting. Not even recommended. Uh,
Not unless you are able to put in, have the responsibility of all the ramifications that come after it.
Yeah, but I mean, pretty much nobody can have that, right?
No, you can. If you're like there every day, if there's something that comes up where someone like taking the precautions, like saying speak to your doctor first, or you know
Mhm.
putting in disclaimers first, not just saying just go vegan. It's like um cuz there's things that could go wrong, and saying that it's the way when it's problematic, it's not perfect. That's not good, but there's ways to go around it to make it where you're not liable, you know.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
yeah.
I guess there's two elements. So one of them would be that even if you take those precautions, I would wonder how many precautions there would need to be. And then the other one is if you know the person's already doing something harmful and you recommend something else, even if it has a different harmful element, if you know the person's eating fast food every day and maybe they're a couple 100 pounds overweight, then they're already doing something harmful to themselves. So if you tell them to go vegan, or recommend it, at least not tell them to, you recommend it, and then you tell them you can be healthy being vegan, and then they go vegan, but you're not there to help them through it. And let's say they end up being low in vitamin D or B12 or something, then sure, that might have happened because they listened to your recommendation and they didn't do any more research themselves, but they're currently destroying their bodies and not doing any more research themselves. So I don't know how to outweigh
Like,
those
you're
two.
only responsible for your part. So the part between like the switching from one to the other, that's the part that you're responsible for. Like if they come up with a health condition that they wouldn't have had before, if they
Mm.
didn't switch, then that is what you're responsible for. But I feel like there's a lot of this where it's like they dodge responsibilities because it's out of sight, out of mind, you know?
Yeah. I know, I get what you're saying, and that makes sense. There is a difference between what somebody does on their own that's bad for them versus them doing something where they listen to somebody else. But I guess maybe that would be an issue with talking about it from a health perspective without giving any more information. But what if you're just talking about it from an ethics perspective? If you just say that you're just going out on the street talking to people, telling them that you think it's morally wrong to eat animals, and if they listen to that and then they don't eat animals, is it on you that they didn't figure the rest of the stuff out?
Um, it's only the part that you did. I mean, if you don't tell them everything, then you can be responsible for all the stuff that they don't know because you didn't tell them. You know what I'm saying? But it only goes so far. Like if they go past whatever you say, that's on them. But you're responsible for your part. You can't just say, just do this and not set it up because maybe what they think is vegan isn't. Maybe
Mhm.
they thought something like chicken's vegan, you know?
Yeah, but if I tell somebody that I like a movie and I think it's a great movie, and then they go watch it because I talked about how great it was, and let's say that there's some drug use in it, somebody's shooting up heroin, and the person watching it thinks that heroin looks amazing in the movie, so they go and buy heroin and shoot it up and destroy their lives. Like, is it when I tell somebody that a movie's great, or even if I recommend it, if I say, hey, I think you might like it, does that mean I'm responsible for everything that might come from it?
No, you could say you like something. You could say that this seems cool for you, but when you're telling someone, go see this movie, then you're responsible. That's the
Even if they
difference.
get something out of the movie that you're not wanting them to get out of it, and they act in their own lives based on it?
Only if you tell them, go see the movie. You must see the
Really?
movie and make them do it because
Really?
then you're causing more harm than good. Like, what's the point of helping animals if you are getting, causing harm yourself? Like, if you're trying to avoid harm, it's
Mhm.
contradictory. You
Oh,
see what I'm saying?
maybe I'm just trying to break it down to figure out how I feel about it elsewhere. So
That's
right
fine.
now, let's say okay, I'm actually going to go see a movie today called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And let's say I like it, and next time I talk to you, I tell you how great this movie is, and then you go watch it and there's like some crazy fight scenes in it or something, and then you want to go start beating people up. Is it is it wrong that I didn't give you a disclaimer that you should watch it, but don't beat people up because you like the fighting in there? At what point do the details
If you
matter?
say you like that movie, that that's nothing
No, no,
because
if I tell you
you're
that I
not
think you
saying,
should
but
go
you
watch
tell
it,
me, yeah, if you tell me to watch it and you don't give me the disclaimer of what parts I should not be continuing with, then yeah, then
then
you
that's
would
my
be.
fault.
Yeah, because you're
That's
the one who said go watch it.
that that's outrageous. There's no way you really think that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So
Um
that's why I feel like there should be precautions because the thing is, especially back in the day when there was the documentaries, they'd tell everyone to go vegan, but they didn't tell them how. there were no really much vegan items
Mhm.
on the shelves. I know there's like a produce section, but when you're only eating meat, you don't know where that is. And some places they don't exist.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like you tell people to go and then they can't go and then they go back to eating animals. It's like it you know, and so then you blame them. It's like that blame didn't have to exist if they didn't have to create the conditions to call and get that blame on top of them eating animal products. Like it's the same. They'll eat animal products either way, but they had to, you know, suffer through not having any options available to them, along with being blamed for why they went back, you know?
Yeah,
And
well,
so it causes a lot more suffering. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, I don't know about blame itself, and I'm with you. I think it makes sense to break down these ideas and see which ones are better or not. I can see some harm to it for sure. If somebody is completely unhealthy currently, but they're getting like the right amount of stuff to stay alive, but then somebody convinces them like, hey, you should just go eat only pineapple. I think you should do it. And the person eats only pineapple and they don't get certain nutrients that they need elsewhere. And then they're like dying. Then sure, it's on both of them. It's on the person for listening and not looking into it, but it's on the person telling them to just eat the pineapple. but
Yeah.
but it's there's so much complication to it. But I don't know, I don't think the idea of recommending something completely makes that person at fault, even to an extreme. If you recommended like, hey, you should go kill somebody, you're not paying them to do it, you're not forcing them to do it. You just made this comment and then they go do it on their own. I don't think we can make people not be responsible for their own actions.
I mean, it's kind of based on context because, you know, marketers do this all the time with like these psychological tactics and everything. So it really depends on the context. If you're saying it when someone's being caught off guard, they're not paying attention, and they don't know what's going on, it's like, or they're intoxicated or something, then,
Mhm.
you know, you telling them to do something when they're not thinking straight, that's going to not be on them, but on you. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, and I think in some cases it definitely should count. I remember there was something where some girl texted her boyfriend telling him that he should kill himself and essentially talked him into doing it, and it makes sense to hold her somewhat responsible for that. I don't know if the intoxication part matters. If somebody chooses to drink alcohol and then because they're drunk, they are going to make poor decisions. I don't think it matters that somebody encouraged the poor decisions. Um, but it matters a little bit. But I would say overall, it depends on if you're it it depends on your reasoning for wanting people to be vegan. If you want people to stop harming animals, then it might be worth sharing the information of you can be healthy on a vegan diet, and it's the animals suffer if we kill them and eat them. So if you don't want animals to suffer, then do this thing, and then that person can go and find out how to be healthy on a vegan diet. Because if somebody just hears you can be healthy on a vegan diet and goes out and just eats French fries and vegan donuts, I would just consider that person extremely unintelligent if they really thought that person meant that this stranger they met on the street that's talking about veganism meant anything vegan. You can eat any amounts of whatever's vegan and you don't have to worry about anything else. And then when they become unhealthy, they're really mad at the vegan. I just don't know if that's fair.
Well, I do, because if someone's not knowing everything about what they're saying, then they could be held accountable for that because they're the ones that are doing this in the first place and are, um, you know, making this choice, you know. So if someone says, oh, because I've seen where it says just eat plants, it's like not every plant is safe, you know. So it's
Mhm.
like, how how much of your life is um worth going vegan for? Like, what if they say just eat plants, and then someone eats a poisonous plant and dies. It's like,
Yeah,
was that worth that person going vegan?
even probably that person probably does not.
Probably.
I don't know if I want that person to live in the same world as I live in. Um, but that's the thing. It's there has to be a way to draw a line, and I don't know exactly where it's at. We could just look at like average intelligence of humans, but knowing that plants exist that can be poisonous, and that when people say eat plants, they're referring to food plants
No, they
that
don't say that. See,
I
there's the
I
problem.
I know, but I don't. You don't need to. If you tell somebody, like if I tell one of my kids that they have to walk to school because they missed the bus and I don't have time to take them, and they think I mean walk in the middle of the street into oncoming traffic, that's not my fault that they walked into the street. Um, people have to be able to know, like how unintelligent would somebody have to be to hear go vegan, go eat plants, and then they just walk into the forest and start eating plants?
Who knows? Maybe they already live in the forest, you know?
What?
Or
Yeah,
near a forest, sure.
if
Yeah, they
if
live
they
near a
live in,
forest because none of the store has food that they can eat.
yeah, if they live in the forest, I think they know which they're probably already eating plants, and I think they would know what to do if they live amongst it. I
Well,
just.
I mean, I have to tell you that where I have lived, I have not found food that I could eat when, veganism was coming about. So I
Mhm,
did have to go and forage for food just to find something because it
mhm,
just doesn't really exist, you know? A lot like there's a good chunk missing. So yeah, it's like that. You kind of have to, and then you run risks. Like maybe
mhm.
I know better. I know the difference between a dandelion and some poisonous mushroom, but maybe someone doesn't. And so it's like if you tell someone to do something without giving people disclaimers or saying what to not avoid, if you're not setting it up for them to succeed and you cause them to fail, that's on you. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah, I
because you
guess.
can't just apply a one size fits all blanket. And that's why I feel it happens with veganism. They just say, just do this. Unnatural vegan, she does this, a lot of them, Mike the vegan, natural vegan. What came out, because I knew this would happen, is a video where she said she got someone in the hospital because of their allergies.
Mhm.
Because she told people to go vegan, then they did. And then they ended up in the hospital
Yeah, but okay, so
from doing
let's take
that.
that for example. So does that mean that you have to find out every possible thing a human can be allergic to and then give them a list of that like 200 food items and say go vegan, but if you go vegan and you haven't tried any of these foods to know if you're allergic to them, find out if you're allergic to them. I
I'm just saying I don't believe in recommending anything to them unless it's fail proof. You have to like say the disclaimers and context and everything. Like there's a YouTube channel, Bob and Fran. Like they
mhm,
will say contact a medical provider before engaging in anything. See,
mhm.
that's setting people up to make sure it's done the right way. But when you just say just eat plants, just go vegan, and you don't say anything else, and then someone there's all these unsafe, risky situations and events you go into, and people walk into them, then you don't think you're not accountable for it because you told them to do something that wasn't safe for them.
Yeah, I guess it depend on the detail. So what if you told somebody that they should eat carrots because it's good for their eyesight, and they start eating a carrot and they choke on it, and you didn't tell them they have to chew it up well? Like, is that your
Yeah, then
fault?
you'd be responsible because you didn't, set them up because maybe they aren't used to eating carrots. You got to
So,
walk people through things before you see what I'm saying?
no, I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's it's good. But okay,
Because the
so
thing is, would it be fair if, say, 20% of people that you tell to go vegan dies because
mhm.
they didn't know better? They put themselves in bad situations, to get hurt, and they get hurt.
As far as I'm familiar with, any situation where if 20% of people I told to go vegan died, they would have died from something that they did that was really dumb. Nothing connected to going
No, say
vegan.
that they wouldn't have if you didn't tell them. Only for the stuff that you
No,
told them.
I'm saying it would have. It wouldn't matter if it was based on the stuff I told them. It would have to be something like what I was telling you with the carrot. If somebody doesn't get told by me how many times to chew a piece of a carrot and they die, I don't care.
See, that's what I'm saying is the issue. It's like the ignorance. And so the thing is, say you didn't care. So
Uh-huh.
now everyone else is seeing that and says, well, now we see that vegans don't care about our health. We're not going to go vegan. We're going to double down and go carnivore because the carnivore trend. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot
Yes
of this
and no.
happens because of that.
No, I agree with you. I think a lot of the way vegans act is very off-putting, and it makes people not want to be vegan, or makes people want to at least distance themselves from vegans. I don't think that's true about this. I think if any non-vegan heard me say that I don't care about a person that's stupid enough to not chew up their carrot, I think every non-vegan will just completely agree with me on that. I mean, there might be one or two out there, and it's probably people that have choked on carrots. And I don't know what to say about those people, but well, let me see if I'm understanding you correctly then. Are you saying that aside from people you live with or can spend most days with, you should essentially never recommend veganism to them?
No, I'm saying if you tell someone something and you don't lay out the risks involved
Hmm.
and you're not with them walking them through the
Yep.
risks, well then yeah, then you'd
But
be responsible. But you don't have to be there with them every day. You can either not recommend it or you can say all the risks involved so that they're aware of it so they don't get sick. Because if you recommend something that causes them to be unwell, that's not good. That's why we have laws to protect against that.
okay, so let's say that I am not vegan and that you were going to recommend veganism to me, and we are going to go off what you just said. How would you go about that?
Say again. I'm sorry.
So we're going to go through an example of if you're the person recommending veganism to me and I'm not vegan, and you are going to you're going to make sure that you cover all the bases for how you have to feel right about recommending veganism. What would you be telling me?
Well, I'd be saying to look out for any potential issues before going, like see if you're able to do it first. Like that's the first thing. Because I
Hmm.
don't want someone to, you know,
And
do
if I
something
said
that's not good for them and then,
and
you
if I
know,
said, what do you mean by that? What would you say back?
I'd say to um look into potential allergens and making sure that the foods don't have toxins in them and all these things. I definitely set up every single precaution possible. And
Okay,
then
so
I
let's
tell them to
say
educate themselves, make sure that and people don't like that the reason why veganism ends up where people talk about these very simple um catchphrases like just eat plants is because
Mhm.
once you get into all the nuances then it gets too complicated and people get confused, but I do it. So, because I believe in like the advanced veganism. So I'll tell them, just because something seems vegan doesn't mean it is. And then I'll explain which ones to look out for that won't be vegan, even if it looks like it. And so I get them in that direction. But I only tell people to go vegan if they are capable of it on their own. Like I don't have to tell them anything. They already know. But if someone's not educated enough, I can't do it because there's a risk somewhere out there that
Okay, so
yeah.
do you feel that if you throw in the caveat of go vegan but educate yourself, that covers everything?
Uh, no, because you just said just educate yourself.
Hmm.
That just because you're educated doesn't help anything. You have to say educate yourself first,
Hmm.
make sure you are able to first, and then think about if it's worth it to you or not. You don't just say just do it. you know.
Gotcha. So it's almost like your recommendation isn't even a recommendation. It's letting them recommend it to themselves in the future.
Yeah, people need to be able to, like, it needs to be where they want it. They're able to. It's something that they're going to do. By then, it's already them, all their risks and everything. You want, like, for me, I make sure the risk is on them because if I'm doing something, then I'm liable if something goes wrong. So I need to make sure everything's with them. So when they leave, everything with them stays with them. It can't be
Yeah,
like me going with them.
I
Yeah.
think most people feel that exact same way, just minus the telling them that part or feeling responsible if they do something really dumb. So that's
Like, say
interesting.
you're like really educated, you already know everything I'm going to say. You know that you're not allergic to anything. You know, like, to avoid the pesticides and that what foods are look vegan but aren't.
Mhm.
And so you are ready. And at that point, then I could say that I believe that you are ready to go vegan. So if you want
Yeah.
to, you can, you
Yeah, I
know?
guess I just feel like there's so many cases where somebody's not going to do it any like for example, there's probably a food out there. There's probably many foods that I've never tasted. I'm so far I'm not allergic to anything, but I don't know if there's something out there I am allergic to. So if you
Mhm.
randomly recommended a food to me and I ended up being allergic to it, I even if you didn't recommend it and I found it on my own, I would try it without getting tested first. And so if you do recommend it, I'm going to try it without getting tested first. So I just don't.
Well, I was going to say I would kind of give them my contact information and say if anything goes wrong, let me know.
I'm just talking about it like a friend. If you're just hanging out with a friend and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I tried strawberries for the first time. They're so good." And the friend's like, "I've never tried strawberries. I'm going to go eat them." And then they do it and they're allergic to strawberries. Like that
But
like
that's not on you because you didn't tell them to eat
no,
strawberries.
I'm
If you
saying what
say,
if you did? What if you said go you should totally eat strawberries. These are so good. You wouldn't know
then
that they're
that's
going to be
being
allergic.
reckless. Yeah,
How would
that's
that's
being reckless.
you're telling me every recommendation every human ever does is reckless. If you tell a friend to
No, I
watch any
didn't say
movie.
every recommendation's reckless. If you know that you can account for every risk that could be taken,
Mhm.
then it's okay to recommend.
Yeah,
But
but how
if
could you
you are
account for
not
that?
accounting for risks, then
Mhm.
that is a problem.
So
Then you
that but
are
you're saying you
responsible.
could never recommend a movie to a person.
You could say like this is a good movie, but don't tell them to watch it.
Okay, okay. It's interesting. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's worth thinking about the things that we do tell people to do. Only in certain cases. I don't in any way when it comes to something like a movie, watching like any kind of art form. But when it comes to consuming stuff, it's complicated. I think it's very important for people to know the importance of something like B12. Other things don't really matter too much. Vitamin D, kind of everybody's deficient in it. But I don't. Yeah, I don't think people have time for all the details of what you're talking about. So it essentially would leave out the idea. It would be that if you want to recommend veganism, you just tell people that you're not recommending it, but you're hoping that they'll recommend it to themselves. And I just don't see if it's. I don't think it's necessary. I don't see the point in it. But I probably agree with you that if you pointed out a handful of things that vegans do wrong and say wrong, there's probably a handful of things where I'd say they could say this thing better,
Well,
but
that's why I was saying I don't really agree with recommendations because if you don't have time to lay it out for someone, then you shouldn't be doing it. because then you're not knowing what you're doing. Because if you know how to say it in a good time slot, then you're capable. And that's why I'm saying about the ignorance plaguing veganism. If you don't know how to do something, why do it? And so people just do it, taking shortcuts, saying, well, I don't care about what happens. Let's just save the animals. It's like, what are you doing?
Okay.
You know, have
Well,
you
what
heard of like
about
the butterfly effect?
yes.
Yeah, so it's like we have to think about veganism kind of like a brand almost, or like all the outcomes, impacts like of your actions. So if you tell someone to go vegan and they start going in that direction, if they do well, then other people join in. And if they do poorly, they're not going to recommend it to other people. Or if they do,
Mhm.
people look at it and say, wow, this is horrible. So I'm saying, like, if you want more people to go vegan, then you would want to make sure and see out that it's done right so that other people could join in. You can just stop it short just by
Yeah,
being reckless.
I agree with the basic idea that just not most of the detail that seems to be going into it. So how about this? Imagine this. If I'm talking to somebody and I fill them in on what happens to pigs in slaughterhouses.
Mhm.
And then when I fill them in and they feel like, oh, that's sad. And I just say, like, next time you're at the store and you're thinking about getting a pig product or something, I think, maybe think about this. And and so it's not necessarily a recommendation. I'm recommending that they think about it, and me recommending that they think about it might make them
No,
make.
that's the definite recommendation.
Okay,
Like how
cool.
you
Perfect.
word things
Mhm.
makes a difference. Like
Okay.
instead of saying, I think this is something you should think about,
Mhm.
you could just say, this could be something to think about when you're going to the store. Because that's how I do it.
Mhm.
I say this is an option. I don't make it a requirement. It's just I give someone an opportunity, an educational opportunity. Like I try to educate people so that they're able to make better options. Now, if say I give them that option and they still choose the meat, or they might even choose to go even more into being less vegan, as long as they made it from an educated standpoint, then
Y-
that's what matters. Because then maybe there's something I don't know that I could be
Yeah,
looking into.
but everybody giving their thoughts and opinions, they're not forcing anybody to do anything. So I think that element doesn't count. Like you said something like that, that saying you should think about that.
Yeah, because
Um,
then you're pushing. It's kind of like pressuring
yeah,
because you're telling someone to do something.
yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm saying is
I'm
kind
just
of
saying
a
that's not
force.
well, it's definitely not force. If you
It
force,
kind of it is in a way, just a very mild way, but yeah, you're saying do it. So you're pressuring and pushing someone into doing, because people like that's how they do that with drugs. Like people, they'll like shove a cigarette
Mhm.
at me and say, do this,
Mhm.
smoke it.
Yeah,
So it's like
that's not force.
pressuring.
It's pressure for sure.
Well, it is it's trying to force it on me. So it's like it's a lot of pressure and you're not creating options. And that's how the cigarette industry lost in for its lawsuit, and why we have cigarette like laws, because they wouldn't give people options out. And so it was forced because you're saying you can only do this and that's it. So that's the same thing happening with veganism. They're saying you can only do this, do this. They're not giving any other options. And so that's a problem. Like if some and that's why you can end up doing something that's bad. So I feel if you don't pressure people into things, then people will come into it on their own because they will educate themselves and know when the time is right based off of everything in their lives, like if they're able to or not. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't
Mhm.
know. So why are you telling someone what you don't know?
I mean, but that's everything. That's everything in life. We talk about our thoughts on things. We share. I like somebody can share an opinion on like raising a child. Like, oh, I think it's best for them to sleep alone and cry it out. And somebody says, oh, well, I think crying makes them feel this. And somebody might have one study suggesting one thing, and somebody has another study suggesting the exact opposite. And we can share our ideas. And sure, it could lead to somebody blindly following that, and it might be a bad idea. But I mean, that's all we do throughout all of life
But
is share
that's you're
ideas.
confusing the two. Saying this is what you like, this is what you feel would
Mhm.
help in this context. Um,
And telling somebody they should do it. Yeah.
that's different than telling someone this is what you
Mhm.
must do.
I'm not saying that it's not different.
I mean,
I'm
it's
saying that's a
okay,
big part of what we do.
um, if they say like how to do it, something, then you could say, if you're doing this, this is how it's done. That's not force either. It's just when you are telling someone do this and are not thinking about the liability, accountability, and the risks involved, that is being reckless. That I feel creates ignorance because the people are not thinking about veganism in their own heads. So how are they even vegan if they're just acting through you? It doesn't move veganism along.
Well, I don't think they
Because
would just
how
be
can they explain it?
I don't
How
think
can
they'd
they?
just be acting through you. I think that they would be convinced of something. If somebody hasn't thought of like what these animals are going through or how they feel, and then they're shown something and they're hearing these ideas, and then they are convinced and they think, you know
No,
what, I
but that's
can.
what I'm saying. They're not. When you're telling someone to do something, they're not thinking about it. So they're not convinced of anything. They're just doing whatever you're telling them to do.
Why would you say that though? That's obviously that wouldn't be the case every time. It would depend on the person.
Because that's well, because in my life, like, there's been a lot of people that would pressure me to go vegan.
Hmm.
So it's like, that it's like I kind of went in that direction because of that, but not because I truly know if it's right or not or what
Hmm.
about it. So I don't really recommend it to anyone because I don't understand it much myself. That's why I go on here to learn more because I just don't understand it. So it's
Hmm.
like if people keep telling others, go vegan, and they just do it blindly without thinking about it, it's like
Hmm.
they won't know if it's truly good or not, right or not. So they could be creating a situation where they're adding more to a problem without realizing it, and they will not account for it because they're not, it's none of this is coming from them. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, I
there's a
mean,
lot of people out there, they believe that, everyone should be forced to be vegan. And it doesn't matter if they're thinking about it or not, if they care or not, just do it, you
yeah, but
know?
you're taking an idea that some people could think and saying it's everyone. You could tell somebody about veganism. You could tell somebody about why it's not ethical to harm animals, and then they could see that and go, "Yeah, I agree with that."
Yeah, but then that's on them. Then they're taking on their own liability.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
that's what I'm
telling,
saying.
if there's these people saying, go vegan, it doesn't matter if you agree or not, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It's better that people are doing it rather than not because that'll save the animals.
Who would do
Like,
that
what are
though?
your thoughts on that? Because there are plenty of people like that.
What? That's
Yeah.
wild.
Where I live and where I, go on the internet, there's a lot of people like that.
That would tell somebody like, don't even think about it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything like
Yeah.
that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of like for me, I've kind of been on the vegan track kind of as a kid and kept that with me through my life. So maybe I'd go on my own, but it's just like in my life, I had all these people like saying, go. If you're talking about it a lot, why are you not vegan? And it's like they don't tell me, um, is this right for you? Do you agree with it? They say, it doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not, just do it. Because it's going to help the animals out. It's like, how does that help me? How does it help anyone else understand? But yeah, there's a lot of people like that in my life, at least, is what I know. A
Hmm.
lot of people. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say on the topic exactly unless you have a different way to branch off to it. But I just can't. I definitely don't agree. I think you can recommend things to people. I think there are better ways than others to recommend things to people. Um,
Well, you
but
have to think, like, people think that veganism's a cult, right? Because they say just do it, right?
no, no. Y-
Well, that's what I've heard.
yeah, no. I've heard people consider it a cult for sure. But
Yes.
people will say that about everything. It doesn't matter what movement it is. People will call certain movements cults, and I think sometimes some movements can seem like that. That's
I
a
don't think veganism's a cult. I just believe that people treat it like one, where
oh
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
just go vegan and they don't tell you how. They don't care if you understand it or not. They don't care if you get hurt or not. They say it's just better for the animals. So who cares about
Yeah.
anything else?
Yeah,
You
I'm
know?
sure I'm sure you've experienced this. I've never seen it. I'd be maybe you should send me something that's like that. I've never heard of it, and I watch all kinds of stuff. I
Oh, if
even
you watch stuff like Unnatural Vegan, Mike the
Mhm.
Vegan,
Yeah, I've
Joey
watched all that.
Carbstrong,
Yep,
you know?
Joey. Yep. There's a
Yeah.
handful of things I dislike about Joey. I've never heard Joey say anything like that. I've never heard
I
anybody say
I
anything
don't
like
know.
that.
I paid for his Patreon, so he doesn't release those videos.
Oh, gotcha.
It's gonna be hard for me to even pull them up. Maybe I'm, misunderstanding people,
Mhm.
but I mean, it's happened in person in my life too. So I'm
I mean,
not recording everything.
yeah, I think it's very well thought of that people can't really change unless they change. Like you have to change like in your mind to truly change. Now, some people just follow along with things and they're sheep and they just like copy what other people are doing. But for the most part, you have to, even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, if you're doing it to follow along with what your friends and family are doing, you're still thinking about it. You're not just like, I'm going to not eat meat right now, but I also will never think about animals and if they're suffering. So I just don't think it's that simple.
I know, but say it was where they're just not thinking about it, they're just
Mhm.
doing it. Do you think that is vegan?
Well,
In the end, like, they don't care about animals, they don't think about animals, they just go vegan, but it's not even helping the animals because of what they're choosing. They don't even know what vegan is or not. They might be eating stuff that probably is filled with animal products. Do you think that would be vegan or helping out or accomplishing
I
what he
mean,
needs to?
so if they don't care about animals whatsoever and they aren't thinking about that element of preventing their suffering and enslavement and all that, I would say it's very much not philosophically vegan. And then if they are also eating stuff that has animal products, I'd say that's also not vegan. But it would come down to various different things. If we refer to not eating meat, dairy, eggs, and honey as what makes you dietarily vegan, then I would say that if they just are consuming something that they don't realize has something like maybe they don't know about gelatin or something, I would say that they're still dietarily vegan. They just aren't aware of an element. I don't know where that cutoff would be though.
Because, it's like the celebrities when they say I'm vegan, they don't even know what vegan is. They just pick a meal that says vegan, and the rest of the time they're not, they're eating regular food. I'm just saying, like, this type of ignorance is what plagues veganism a lot, where people say something is vegan because someone told them, just go vegan, and, they just go out on their own and do stuff that's not vegan, call it vegan, and then they create the wrong idea of what veganism is. Then other people latch onto it, they do the wrong thing. It's just, and then when people see it doesn't work, it's like, then they're like, well, veganism doesn't work, so let's just not do it. Let's do something that works. Oh, carnivore works, let's do that. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
this is why I feel that ignorance plagues veganism, that in that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't see it exactly how you're saying it. I don't, for the most part, I don't see anything wrong with the idea of telling somebody that they should be vegan because of moral reasons or they should be vegan because from their understanding it's a healthy thing. I don't think you have to give people all these different details. I would say leaving veganism is likely happening from ignorance. And if you want, you could blame it on the person that told them to go vegan. But I don't think that's the most accurate. If somebody didn't figure out the right way to be vegan, it's probably more so on themselves, but I wouldn't even judge them too harshly about it. I would just say that if they do care about animals, then they'd probably figure out some way to continue to at least somewhat reduce, probably like a Alex O'Connor situation, or they would slowly try to figure out how to get back to veganism. But if you just fall completely off the wagon and you just go back to eating meat every single day and dairy every single day, then I would say it's probably based on some element of ignorance or like lack of empathy for the animals. No, I don't think it comes down to who recommended veganism to them.
I mean, what if you did recommend veganism to someone and then they got really sick? Do you think you're liable for that? Because you told them to, like you said, go vegan, and you said you need to go vegan, and you
Mhm,
kind of like shame them into it and
mhm,
pressure them, and they're like, okay, I'll go. And they don't really think about like what they're doing. They don't look into whether it's safe or not. And then they do something, it's unsafe, and then they get hurt from it. Do you
mhm.
think you're liable for that because you kind of
Uh,
like push them into it
So when you say
and
liable,
were aggressive?
do you mean legally, or do you just think morally, like should I feel responsible?
Um, you know, it's ethically. I
Yeah,
mean, you could legalities come from ethics, but
sure. I just
ethically,
wasn't.
like if you made it where they have no other option,
Yeah,
you pressure them and you make them
yeah,
go vegan in a way that's very reckless, and
yeah. Let's
you
just say
cause them to get hurt
yeah. Let's just say
badly, like they end up
yeah,
in the hospital or dead, you know?
for sure. Okay, so let's say I'm on the street and I'm doing like a street table talk, which I plan on doing this summer. I'm really excited about it. But
Mhm.
let's say I'm there and some people sit down. Somebody sits down and we're talking, and I tell them like, hey, they can feel pain. I think ethically we shouldn't harm animals. And then I say, there's the many sources that will show that you can be fully healthy on a vegan diet. And let's just say that's the bulk of what I say, and then we shake hands, they leave, and then 6 months later, let's say I've kept in touch with that person, but I didn't give them any more advice. I just told them that, but then I've kept in touch, and then it turns out that they got really sick because I don't know, let's say I don't know, a
Their
B12 thing or something.
allergies, you know, they
uh
were allergic to wheat, let's say, and they
sure,
got sick.
yeah. Somehow they never ate wheat up until I told them to go vegan, and then now they eat
Mhm.
wheat. And I didn't think to tell them about allergies. um then if they got sick and I was talking to them, I'd be like, oh man, well, I think you got to cut wheat out. I wouldn't, but no, I wouldn't feel responsible in any way.
Well, no, because not in that circumstance, because you were just saying, this is something that I think would work, and be
Hmm.
good, and that's something that you like. That's not it. I'm
Hmm.
saying when you're saying, look how horrible you are for eating eggs, and the male chicks are, being in, in mass like killed
Hmm.
off for that, and you're such a horrible person, you need to go vegan, there's no other thing that you should be doing, this
Hmm.
is what you need to do, you have to
Okay.
do it, like that, where it's like you're being very, very aggressive and strong and saying this is what you have to do.
Okay. Well,
You only can do veganism.
okay. So I feel that there are issues I find with that, but just real quickly, I thought you were saying that recommendations, like me saying,
No,
hey.
that's yeah, that's why I felt like it was getting confused. Saying I like veganism, saying that I think veganism is great.
Mhm.
That that's
No,
not
no, no,
that's
no.
if someone acts on that, that you're not responsible for that. You're
Yeah,
only
I know. That's not what I
responsible when
said.
you tell
Hold
them
on, hold on, hold on,
do it.
hold on, hold on, hold
Go
on.
ahead.
That's not what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is the do it part. Kind of like you were saying with the movie. You recommend a movie, you're at fault if they start becoming a fighter. So if I recommend this, if I say I think it's morally wrong to eat eat animals, you should stop eating animals.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm aware that you are able to be healthy on a vegan diet. You should eat a vegan diet. And then they
Yeah.
leave. We keep in touch. 6 months, a year later, I get a message that says that they're really sick and they're in the hospital because they were
Hmm.
allergic to gluten, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were chatting. I'd be like, "Oh man, that's a bummer. Yeah, I guess you got to cut gluten out." If I wanted, I could go over the top and tell them a few different non-gluten grains they could try out, like
Yeah, but are you responsible for that
not at all,
hospitalization?
not
See,
at
that's
all,
where
not
I
in one.
feel, and that's where I feel that then you would be, because you're the one who led the person to get to that point, because you never looked into whether they can or can't. And so you cause them to get hurt. You put the burden of the expenses on them, and now they can't move forward. And so how does that help anything
Well,
is
I
what
don't
I
know
want
about
to
how
know.
does it help anything. I can answer that in a second, but I don't think I put anything on any that person. I don't know how they went their whole lives without eating wheat, but even not being vegan, if they would have just walked into a store and got something that had wheat in it and it did the same thing to them, then it would have done the same thing. So I
Because
don't.
for like I'll say, because like when I went vegan, I did not
Mhm,
eat much soy in my life.
mhm,
I probably ate a tofu when I was like a few years old, and
mhm,
I liked it better than liverwurst. But when people told me to go vegan, then I ate a lot of soy and I
mhm,
got really sick, because there's certain antibodies that will certain parts of your immune system, the IgG uh, cells, where um, some of them give you anaphylaxis with the immune
mhm,
reaction. But then there's other ones that build up over time. So the more you eat it, the worse it gets. So then I was like really sick in bed, but no one
mhm,
was there to help me. No one said that they cared. No one
mhm,
cared if I got sick. They
mhm,
just said go vegan, and that was it. So I had to handle all the sickness all on my own. Like,
mhm.
and no one, everyone just said, well, you're a bad person for eating animal products. But they didn't care if, I can't go anywhere, do anything because I'm sick, because I keep eating foods that are making me sick. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I don't know what to say about individuals and how they treat people. Like, I don't know if you're talking about close friends and family. I would say if they don't
Well, I'm
care
saying
about
like
you.
random people telling me to go vegan.
Yeah. So if a
Saying
random person tells you to go
you're a
vegan
horrible
and
person, like
Mhm,
people would do it that way. They're like, you're a horrible person, you're killing all these animals. And I said, I need to
mhm,
double check to make sure it's okay. They said, I don't care. If you are going, I'd rather you be vegan. It's better you are vegan. I don't care what it takes. Like some people would like injure people just so people can go vegan. Anything like, and people do that with religion too. They're like, I'd
yeah.
rather hit someone on the bat with a bat over their head if it makes them convert to my religion.
Yeah,
So,
if somebody says that they're interested in being
like,
vegan,
if
but they
they're violent, is what I'm saying, where they're threatening violence to you and saying you have to go. You know
I
what I'm
don't think
saying? Because
I've never heard of that
it happens.
existing. I've
Yeah.
okay, I
I
agree
mean,
with
you
you.
do
Yes,
see, like, in the news where they do the vandalism and stuff. They
I
say go
haven't.
vegan, you know,
Yeah,
or else, and then they do the vandalism.
I'm not denying that this is possible, that it has existed. I've never heard of it. There
Yeah.
is one book. There is a book that somebody told me about. I can't think of the name of it, and it involves the idea of people thinking that you should be violent and put bombs places or whatever. And this was written in
Mhm.
the early '90s. But aside from that, I mean, your average vegan. I've never. This is just not a thing that I know anything about. But yes, I would agree. And nobody should be
Well, I mean,
violent.
they keep it like on the down low, but back in the day,
Yeah, I don't.
there was this group in this animal liberation group in
Mhm,
Pennsylvania, and they would like terrorize the community and
mhm,
like kill people and do like terrorism acts,
sure. Yeah,
you
kill.
know.
You'll
Do you
hear it
think
right
they're
here.
responsible for like pressuring people to go vegan and everything if there's a group like that? Like they're responsible for the damages?
Would that group be responsible? You mean?
Yeah. For,
Yeah, if
giving
somebody
people
kills
health
somebody,
problems
they
and threatening and
no.
forcing and everything.
I don't even have I don't know a thought
And
to think
causing,
of.
like, vandalism and everything
No.
else, and
Yeah, each of those things would be their individual things. If somebody kills somebody, then they are at fault for killing somebody. If somebody vandalizes something, they're at fault for vandalizing them. In
I
both
mean, like,
cases,
what if
those
someone says, "Eat the poison," and is, like,
what
threatening
poison?
them with, like, violence if they don't, you know? So
Yeah,
I'm saying
if
it's like
somebody says I'm gonna put this poison down your throat and kill you unless you eat this vegan Danish instead of
yeah,
this non-vegan Danish, and then they do it and they're allergic to something in the vegan Danish, I would say there's an issue with the all of everything that just took place there. I wouldn't even care if they're allergic to it or
exactly,
not.
that's what
No,
I'm
not
saying.
exactly. No, no. I don't think you are, or at least for the most part, that's not what you have been saying. Now, yes, nobody should be threatening violence and death and any of the stuff you're talking about. But if somebody says, "Hey, you should go vegan," and vegan is the best, and only even if people said things that I disagree with, like saying that you're a bad person if you don't eat meat or that if you don't go vegan, and then that person goes, "Oh, I don't want to be a bad person," they go vegan and they get sick because they're gluten intolerant. It is not the fault of the douchebag vegan that said you're a bad person. I personally don't think you should call people a bad person if they eat don't go vegan. But if somebody happens to be allergic to something and they choose on their own to do a thing, I just I don't agree with it in any way.
Well, I guess, it's okay. You have your stance and I have mine on it. I feel like
Mhm.
it's just a bad like a slippery slope, you know. I sorry, not a slippery slope. It's just a bad road to go down, and I don't feel it's even vegan when, I'm really anti-violence. So I feel like if
Mhm.
anyone's being pressured to go vegan, then that's not vegan in itself because that's kind of I feel like, humans are animals, so you're being cruel to animals. So, well, you recommending something that's not going to work without putting in the accountability and being reckless about it, that's
Mhm.
not really vegan because then you're being cruel to people by making them have all the responsibilities. Because then you're putting all the hospitalizations on them, the cost, the effort, everything.
Yeah.
That didn't have to happen if you didn't,
Yeah,
put it
I
in.
think
So you can say, I'm vegan. I like veganism. This is something that I like. I believe in, that I think is good, and that I recommend it compared to something else.
mhm.
But if you're telling people go vegan, do this, do that, then you
Mhm.
start going down the line of it gets more violent and more violent, more violent. I feel like veganism shouldn't involve violence because then it's cruelty. Once you
Yeah.
start entering into violence, then it gets cruel,
Yeah, I
you know?
think we have a difference of opinion on what
Yeah.
violence is. So that there's that, and that's fine. It can just be what it is. But I
Mhm.
think it's very important for humans to look at outcomes. We have to we act based on what happens. If every time we told a person that we like the color green, they jumped off of a bridge and killed themselves, I think all of us humans should probably stop saying we like the color green. And so if on average, if all except one time out of a million that you tell somebody they should watch a movie because it's great, if only one time out of or let's say out of a billion, I don't even know if ever any time somebody watches the movie and they decide to go do some crazy action because of that movie. Usually when you recommend a movie, people just watch it and they like it or whatever, or they don't like it. And same thing with veganism. You could recommend veganism. Some people could become vegan and then become not vegan, and some could just become vegan, and maybe a couple people might accidentally get I don't think anybody's going to get any sort of a issue other than if they are just eating very unhealthy vegan food versus the unhealthy not vegan food. They're probably going to be equally unhealthy. But anyways, um, there's not some big issue happening with either of these things. So if we could consider it violence to recommend a movie to somebody without giving them a 48-hour long conversation about what they need to make sure they don't do when they watch this movie, uh, I if you want to live that way, I guess go for it. But
I mean, you talked about the green. You said, well, if everyone's, someone jumps off a building every
Mhm.
time. Hold on. Sorry.
That's
You
right.
were saying that people shouldn't say, I like the color green if it leads to people jumping off the building. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of strange how we're the opposite. Because for me, if people, out of respect, people shouldn't say that I like the color green so that they
Mhm.
don't end up hurting people. But I
Mhm.
don't think it should be banned just because people are being reckless in their actions. Like maybe you
Yeah.
can kind of create measures to kind of prevent people from being able to do that. But I don't think that people should be censored like that.
I don't think so either.
I know, but then you're the opposite, where you say, well, if you recommend something, like say I recommend veganism to someone and they're
Mhm.
allergic to peanuts, and it exposes them to more likely to peanuts and they end up dying, then
Mhm.
that's on me. I caused that because I told them do it and they did it and it went wrong.
Yeah, so essentially the only way to recommend veganism by this view that you're saying is if you tell somebody veganism exists, I'm not recommending it, but if you go out and look into it and recommend it to yourself, then interesting. That's
Yeah, like for
that's
me,
all you
i'll,
can say
I'll
to somebody.
say, like, if this is something that I believe in, that I recommend, but I'm not going to recommend it to them specifically. I'll say, if you like it and you want to do it, like, make sure that this is something that you want to go into, and that, because to make sure it's on them,
Hmm.
whatever happens to them, whatever they do, make sure that it's for them, not me.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to cause problems, and that's not going to help anything. That's not going to, if that person dies, that person is not able to, carry on veganism after that. And they couldn't make everyone else say, well, that person died, I should not go vegan. So I'm saying,
Mhm.
I'll say, this is how far I got. This is what I've done for my life. I've
Mhm.
made it possible and it helped me. I recommended it to other people that it helped. This is something I like, that I usually recommend, but to say, but I'm not going to say it's a guarantee for you. Like, I
Yeah.
put in the disclaimer, and it doesn't take that long to put in a disclaimer that just
Okay,
because it works for some doesn't mean it works for everyone.
let me throw out one other idea. Okay, so let's
Okay.
say a friend or a family member is at the grocery store and they're getting groceries and you think of something you want and you call them and say, hey, can you grab this, and you want bananas, and they weren't going to go that direction, but because you said that, they go and they accidentally slip on something and they fall and get hurt really bad or they die or something. uh, are are you saying, are you saying that that you're at fault for asking them for that thing without
Yeah.
telling them not to?
Yeah, because you didn't go and make sure that they didn't slip and fall when you did that. Like, if I said, hey, watch out for the slippery mess over there, please be careful, don't run, you know,
You'd be on the phone,
then,
you wouldn't know that there's a slippery mess.
well,
You
then why am I doing that? Why am I
because you
not
want,
going myself?
because they're already there and you want bananas. This is outrageous. Okay, essentially you're just saying humans shouldn't talk to each other.
No, I never said that. I'm saying don't tell someone to do something if it's going to cause them issues, and then not take responsibility for it if you created a situation
Hmm.
that caused damage. That's what I'm saying. Take
Yeah.
accountability, take responsibility.
So you're
Otherwise,
so
not to.
you're recommending that I don't recommend people be vegan or whatever. And then so if I go to a table talk and I was going to recommend, but now due to your recommendation, I don't recommend. And therefore that shortens the conversation down to maybe a little shorter than it would have been because I'm not recommending now. And when they stand up, they get hit by a car. It's your fault that you recommended to me that I don't recommend to them to be vegan.
As I said, there are ways that you can recommend veganism to someone. Like, if you're
No, no,
able
no, no,
to
no, no,
account
no.
for all
I
the
know
what
that.
ifs, you could do that.
Well, hold on. No, I'm just saying, if I choose not to recommend because of your recommendation of not recommending the way that people do.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm listening to you and I make a choice that is based on you, are you saying that that's your fault? That person died because our conversation was shorter because of your recommendation, and then because they died, that's your fault, and you should feel bad for that?
Like if I told you do this,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I would be partially at fault for that. Because I'm not fully at fault because you did it too, but I'd probably take most of the responsibility because I started it. If I say do this and you
Uh-huh.
do it,
Yeah.
then and it went wrong, then I'm partially responsible for that. But I'm mostly responsible for it because I was the one who
Okay.
started that. Yeah.
Okay. So if okay, so should you go to jail?
Well, I would try to fix the mess. It just depends on what happened.
Let's say
But
they're dead and there's no mess to fix.
if they're dead and there's no mess to fix, because you can always pay for the funeral and this and that. If you take responsibility for your actions, then I don't know where the jail comes in. But if I
Well, a
like,
person died because of a recommendation you did.
yeah, but people don't usually go to jail if someone dies from recommendations, unless
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, I don't usually see
You were
that.
saying that the recommendation makes you at
No, if I
fault.
say go walk out in front of the street and they get hit by a car,
Uh-huh.
then that is my fault. And if then I could end up in jail for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would legally happen, but with laws, anything's possible. I could end up in jail. I could not, but it could happen because of
Hmm.
based on the laws there. Where I live, that would not I would not go to jail for it, but I would be responsible. Well, no, I wouldn't say legally. I'm saying me ethically, I believe I would be responsible for that person, because I told them to go out in the street and it without telling them anything else, and they get hit by a car. I'd be
Wild.
responsible for
Okay.
that person dying.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, it's why this is wild. It's interesting. Okay.
yeah,
I will yeah, I'm curious to hear what other people think. I wonder, yeah, this will be interesting. But anyways, good talk, and
yeah.
we'll do another one soon.
I hope you're clear on what I mean by saying that this is something you like, something that you believe
Mhm.
is better than other stuff
Yeah.
versus telling someone go do it. I hope that there's a difference. Like saying you like something, saying that this is something great, I like it better
Yeah.
than something else. That's way
Yeah.
different than saying go do it.
Yeah, no,
You have to do it
I think I'm pretty
and
clear
being
on it.
violent.
If I tell a friend like this carrot is amazing, you need to eat a carrot, and then they start eating a carrot and they choke to death on it, you think I am essentially a bad person for not
I'm not
for
saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying you're responsible for anything that you tell someone to do.
I'm
That's all.
responsible for somebody's death, but I'm not a bad person?
Well, I mean, I would say you're reckless. I guess you are kind of a little bit of a bad person for being reckless, but it's more of ignorance. You're not knowing better. You're not knowing, hey, maybe I should tell the person to cut it up first. Maybe I should think about all these things. But yeah, I guess in a way you're a little bit of a bad person for putting something out there that causes people to get hurt. That's very
Mhm.
destructive. So that's not good.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I think I understand you. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yay.
it was good talking. So
You
yeah,
too.
you have a good day and we'll talk later.
Sounds good. Mhm.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.